to join us for this year's book Bacchanal. So in case you missed the prior Lit Fests, normally, we have a real party, a big party at the Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts. And notwithstanding COVID-19, and through the leadership and hard work of our team here for the US VI Lit Fest, we are holding the book Bacchanal virtually like many of our events. So I want to just take a moment to thank everyone who has put in the time and the work to get us to this point, and want to bring greetings on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts to thank you for your hard work, your diligence in getting us the most amazing authors and individuals to be part of the USVI Lit Fest. I have enjoyed being part of this from the very beginning and look forward to continued progress. And as soon as this COVID is over, and I want you to know I'm doing my part as the Deputy Commissioner for Health, we encourage everyone to get vaccinated so that we can kind of sort of get back a little bit to normal. So I just want to encourage you to enjoy the book Bacchanal. It's a little different this year. So the course of events, I'll have partners working this program, the Dr. Harkins-Spear, Alscess, Brown, Dr. McMahon, Arnold, and that's been the team that's been working with me, and we've been working together on this project for 7 years? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
This is 7th year.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So until we can get back to me being able to welcome you to the physical space at the Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts, and you saw a little hint of that this morning with Lucian's the video of Lucian Downs, I just want to say, let's get it rolling and look forward to enjoying an amazing 2 hours of literacy and authorship in the Caribbean, in St. Croix, with the USVI Lit Fest. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over right now to my peers.
Okay, great. Good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session of the late afternoon session of the VI Lit Fest, the book Bacchanal component. It's been a part of it's become a tradition in the Lit Fest over the last several years. Today, we have a list of authors who will be reading for 10 minutes from their book, and beginning with a little bit about what inspired them. We wanted to start off with, I believe it's Natasha Lightfoot. I don't know if Natasha is here. Natasha Lightfoot, we're going to give her a little bit more space because of the nature of her research, and is Ms. Lightfoot here? Adrian, can you tell Adrian, is Adrian in the Adrian?
Yes, I'm going to email her. I cannot see her yet in the list of panelists and the list of attendees.
Okay. We had okay. We can who do you have there? Can you show us who you have? I don't see.
We have Amy Rose Herrick.
Well, we can go with Amy. We can go with who is here, and then they will fill in as they come, and just as long as we respect the time. Dr. Harkins-Pierre is going to be helping to referee this process as well. So welcome, Dr. Harkins-Pierre. She's always insisted and always made sure that she has the Lit Fest held up. She wanted to participate in the Lit Fest. So we thank you very much for participating as usual and being there for us. So you're going to help to referee the process. So the refereeing means that we will comment on the after, take questions and put them forward to the author, and so forth. I think. Oh, Charlene is here now. Charlene is going to text us who's next, so that then you'll be able to see that, and you'll be able, you or I or Ms. Valmond or Yvette will announce who's the next person, and then we will just work together as a team to elucidate the very best of what the author has to offer.
Good.
Okay?
Yeah, sounds
okay.
Good.
So Emmy Herrick will go first. Emmy Herrick was with us all day today, I must tell you.
Wow, I wish I could
Thank
have.
you very much for being here since this morning.
Well, sure. Well, I have a little bit of flexibility here. So now, as I understand it, I have 10 minutes. So I'm going to try and use my time wisely. And I'm very flexible. I see a head nodding. So let's get going. Well, my name is Amy Rose Herrick, and I have lived here on the island of St. Croix for just over a decade. And it was really part of very much of a life do-over. And as a result of that, I had written the book that is called Pack Faith First, Suitcases Second, A Decade of Miracles After 50. So now you also know that my age at that point. I have been blessed. This book was released in February. Within a few days, it became a #1 Amazon bestseller. So I will give all the glory to God for that because I don't have a huge following. I'm going to start by going ahead and reading a little bit on the back on a couple of individuals who were gracious enough. One of them is Kelly Farladew. She is in Canada, and she is the Fierce Woman of the Year award winner. I loved reading Amy's book. It was riveting and magnetizing. Once I started reading it, I didn't want to put it down. Her book is so full of those little miracles that add up to be so much. This book is a must read. I was very touched when Denise was in part of my beta group, and her comments were, Amy's book moved me to take a leap of faith over the chasm of self-doubt and fear of the unknown to co-create my own life do-over. And for that, I am truly grateful. I will be excitedly waiting for her next book that I know will be well worth the wait. And I thought what might be most enjoyable was to tell you one of my favorite stories that is in the book, one of my little miracles, and it's called Just Call Me JC. I was driving out late one night alone, and I happened to be in a dead cell zone area when one of my tires blew out. I'm looking around. It's very dark, deserted. There are no close houses on this winding, blind, curve-filled stretch, and there are very few, if any, streetlights here on St. Croix. There were no streetlights where I was stranded. I know that I have a spare, but I'm telling you, I'm not very good at changing tires. My hubby, Randy, takes care of that issue. Any of us, especially a woman late at night, alone, when it is dark, on a deserted road, will have a little fear jump right to the front of your mind as you try to figure out a workable, safe solution. I can tell you, fear was knocking at my door that night. I was thinking, what are my options to get out of this situation? What's the safest thing I can do here? My community is like yours. We have opportunities that do not have your best interests in mind. There have been some incidents on the road recently where vulnerable individuals I knew had been injured and robbed by those with nefarious intentions. I did not want to be the next headline. I'm praying, Lord, what do I do now? What is my next move? I need an answer here. My cell phone is useless. I don't know if I can change this tire. I'm alone. It's dark. This is not a good place to be this late at night alone. I looked up, and coming up in front of me is a gentleman who was walking late at night where there are no sidewalks, no houses close by. He does not have a dog with him, and I cannot think of any reason he should be here. However, there he is in the headlights headed towards my car on my side of the road. I'm thinking, oh Lord, is this good or is this bad? He walks up to the car and he looks at me. I can see the flat tire. He is smiling, and his dark brown eyes, they look so kind. I rolled the window down. Do you need some help with that tire? I saw you pull off and stop. Yes, I do. Well, have you been able to call anyone? He must know there's no cell service here. Not yet. That seemed like a non-committal answer when I did not know this man. Well, I'll be happy to help you. Let's get you started on your way back home. Can you open the back so I can get to the tools and spare tire? He walked away from my driver's door to the rear hatch. I am mentally debating whether I should get out of the car or not. I look around, and in doing so, I realize that we are without a doubt alone out here. When I get out of the car, I'm going to be vulnerable. Oddly, I realize I have no fear about this situation anymore. The gentleman is friendly, but there is absolutely no reason he should be walking down this road at night nor offering to help me change my tire. I prayed quietly again, took a deep breath, got out of the car, opened the back hatch, and he cheerfully began fixing my flat tire. He and I had a lovely visit under the light of my useless to call anyone cell phone acting as our flashlight. No cars came by the whole time. Soon he had me all back together, tools put away, now repaired and ready to go on my way. You be sure that you get that flat tire fixed tomorrow and don't get stranded again. Would you please let me at least pay you a little something to thank you for rescuing me? May I turn around and take you back and drop you somewhere? It's a long way before you get to town here from where you're walking. He kind of smiled at me with a twinkle in his eye. I don't need a ride. I'm not going very far. You go on home to your family. I had never mentioned my family. He started walking down the road behind me now. Before I drove away, I opened the door and said, well, excuse me, you never told me what your name was. I'm Amy. What's your name? He turned around, kind of smiled, looked at me and shouted back, just call me JC. JC, I can't thank you enough, and I look forward to seeing you again some other day around the island. I don't think you will. He turned and walked away, and I drove away and arrived home safely. Over the coming days, I kept thinking about JC. Why was he there right when I needed him to be? Still made no sense to me. I told this story to a girlfriend of mine who thought that the whole thing was incredulous. She said his name was JC, right? Can you think of anything else JC stands for? Do you think by any chance his name was Jesus Christ? That's why he didn't have very far to go? All I know is that I prayed for help, and my answer was this kind man walking headlights out of nowhere on a deserted road to rescue me from a flat tire. Then he left again, walking away in the darkness. We were laughing at the craziness of the thought she had. I do not know your faith walk. Does it still seem absurd to you for me to casually state, I believe the Son of God can change flat tires late at night on empty roads on St. Croix when asked for help? All I know is JC suddenly appeared and took care of my flat tire problem. I never saw JC again, and I looked for him for quite some time while I was out and about to thank him again for being a blessing to me. His handsome, friendly, smiling, lined face, green, black, yellow, and red Jamaican colored clothing, dreadlocks, and Caribbean accent was as unique as he was. I would recognize him again easily. You can believe whatever you want here. I believe JC was a special gift to me no matter how he manifested before me that night. I'm not sure exactly what I was praying for when I asked for help, but I certainly received an answer that was perfect at the time. The other thing that in going through my journey here, that there have been so many incredible things that to me have been absolutely faith building. And I thought it might be interesting for you to hear a couple of the chapter titles. Mark Twain knew I was moving to the Caribbean before I did. The next big clue I missed. I never expected a life do-over was already in motion. Where is Christiansted? Another confirmation came while it was raining. I left my heart in the Caribbean. I left the rest on the mainland. Your dream home may only be temporary. So blessed, I gotta give it away. The good life includes penguins on the beach. Passwords suddenly mattered. Matching dishes do not make food taste any better. Progressive shopping, a new normal. Stop and appreciate the African tulip tree. Leaping from a 2 to a 10 on my life mission in an instant includes doing the laundry. Have you ever tasted this? Letting the outsiders in. I gave you wings to fly, but honey, we don't know anyone in Northern Ireland. Just call me JC, the chapter I shared with you. Home is where our current house lives. You must not exceed a 50-pound limit. We receive back what we gave away and more. Always find at least 3 blessings in everything. Friends and family relationships are always changing. And how will you grow where you are planted? If anyone would like to get an autographed copy here locally, I will give you my phone number, which is 785-224-8954, and I'd be happy to get those to you. There are copies that are available at Undercover Books, which of course is very familiar to any of the authors here on island. I enjoy doing podcast interviews and guest appearances. And this book is available on Amazon in the book form that you see here. I do have Kindle versions, and the audio version will be up very soon. I want to thank you so much for inviting me and for being ready, even when I wasn't called upon. So if you have any questions, I would be delighted to answer those. And thank you so much to all of those behind the scenes that made this possible, because we don't see the beginning, we just see the great job that you've done now. So thank you.
Would you repeat that phone number for those who may want to reach you?
Yes, it is 785-224-8954.
Okay,
And I'm on St. Croix.
thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy. That was a rather riveting story. I imagine the other chapters are similar in nature. I look forward to reading that. Thank you. I see that we have Miss Natasha Lightfoot with us now. Ms. Brown, did you want to do any particular introductions for Miss Lightfoot?
No, Miss Natasha Lightfoot has. I think I'm going to let her move forward. I don't want to take her time away from her, and we'll do all of that back and forth. We'll get a little bit more about her. She's a professor. She's an Antiguan author. She's written a book. I think her book is entitled. What is the last book you wrote, Dr. Lightfoot?
Hi everyone. Yes, so the book I wrote, I'm hoping you all can hear me well. Yeah? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, the book I wrote published in 2015 is called Troubling Freedom, Antigua, Aftermath of British Emancipation. And I'm a historian of Antigua and Barbuda, and also of Caribbean slavery and freedom. The book that I wrote looks at the transition from slavery to freedom in Antigua, but the next book that I'm working on, which I'm going to read today, a little bit from today, is about British-born enslaved people who are illegally taken to other islands and, traded into enslavement in different empires outside of the British Empire, and the work that they do after 1834, which is abolition, the date of abolition in the British Empire. Once they find out that there is an abolition that happens in the lands of their birth, the work that they do to try and get themselves free by petitioning British authorities from wherever they are elsewhere in other parts of the Imperial Caribbean. So I just first want to start, before I get really deep into that, by thanking Alscess Lewis Brown and the organizers of the USVI Lit Fest for having me here today. It's really an honor to get to share this work about the freedom struggles of our enslaved forebears in the Caribbean. And in particular, the woman whose story I want to share with you today is someone that I suspect could potentially be my ancestor, as she identifies herself as the child of a woman who is surnamed Carr, which is my mother's maiden name and the surname of half of my family, including my recently deceased uncle Ralston, whose funeral was earlier today in Charlotte Amalie, and in whose memory I dedicate today's presentation. So let me begin. Eliza Moore, an enslaved woman in colonial Danish St. Thomas, discovered in 1836 that the British emancipated all enslaved people throughout their territories in 1834. Her discovery resulted from the arrival of a British man of war in St. Thomas that announced emancipation and offered any British-born bondspeople who were laboring there, who could produce evidence of their place of origin, a chance to gain their freedom and return to the British island of their choice.
Oh.
Eliza Moore attempted to do so, but the authorities denied her based on her lacking sufficient paperwork to prove her Britishness. But this denial sparked her effort on two separate occasions in 1836 and 1838 to petition British authorities in the island of her birth, Antigua, and to locate formerly enslaved Antiguan women, kin and friends, to locate information that could vouch for her in having had birth and youth in Antigua. British and Danish colonial authorities corresponded extensively regarding her case, which remarkably resulted in her securing her freedom in 1838. The letters that were exchanged between the British and the Danish reveal
the complicated legalities raised by the movements of enslaved people between various imperial jurisdictions throughout the islands that had different statuses regarding slavery. The archival record also demonstrates gendered inequalities that shaped Eliza Moore's trajectory, including her being raped during her youth and the disruption of her maternal bond with the 3 children that she eventually would bear as an enslaved woman. Her case is distinct in certain aspects, but it is, I suspect, one of thousands of cases of this kind involving the legal troubles that are produced when British subjects who are struggling to free themselves from wrongful enslavement in the Caribbean colonies of other empires are occurring over the mid-19th century. The documents of these cases ultimately reveal the very rare and extraordinary moments of mobility and access to state and community protections that sometimes accrued to ordinary enslaved people. So the story of Eliza Moore is going to be the first chapter of the book I'm currently working on that I've entitled Fugitive Cosmopolitans, Mobility and Freedom Struggles Among Black Atlantic Subjects. This new book is going to tell the history, like I mentioned earlier, of how 1834, that passage of emancipation in the British Caribbean, which is one of the earliest state-sponsored acts to liberate slaves en masse in the Americas, not only sparked transatlantic intellectual and governmental debates about the future of slavery as an institution throughout the Americas, but it also served as the direct spark for a number of individual bondspeople to attempt to pursue their freedom by getting back to British territory. So this study examines various cases of African-descended enslaved people who were illegally sold, some when they were still in slavery, and some who had even been previously manumitted, but through various basically untoward exchanges, get re-enslaved even after having been freed and sold to other places outside of the British Empire. These people subsequently appear in the records anywhere from the late 1830s through the late 1850s, and they've been lawfully enslaved for maybe some years or some decades, appealing to British colonial administrators to acknowledge that they were born in British lands and that they should have a right to liberty over and above the right to private property that the mostly white and male subjects of other empires claimed on their bodies at the time. My book is going to argue that the unlikely ways that these mid-19th century Caribbean enslaved people learned that their bondage was illegal reflected a cosmopolitan sensibility they acquired, hence cosmopolitan in the title, because it demonstrated that they were aware of political developments unfolding around the Atlantic world slave societies, which is something that we often don't attribute to enslaved people. We don't talk about how enslaved people really could acquire knowledge and use it to their advantage. They had the savvy to obtain it, to figure out exactly how it applied to them, and actually set a plan in motion to get it to result in their freedom. The very attempt to draw attention to their cases to the British, which either entailed written among the few who were, literate, or just as often in-person pleas, meant smuggling either one's letters or oneself away from their enslavers to do so over significant distances, either within or between islands, indicating impressive acts of fugitivity, hence the fugitive in the title. So before going into more about what I've concluded regarding her case, I want to continue my reading by giving you Eliza Moore's own words in the singular surviving letter that she wrote to her sister that I located in the British National Archives a few years back. Well, it's not a few years. I found her in November of 2003. So I've been carrying her story around actually for nearly 20 years. So let me begin. St. Thomas, June 14th, 1836. To Hester Blackstone, Antigua. My dear sister, you no doubt will be surprised on the receipt of this letter from me after so many years' absence from my native home, my parents, and relations. I'm your sister Betsy, the same daughter of Sally Carr. Mistress Gilliam, who lives next to Mr. Turner the butcher, was my former mistress. I was born in her hands. I've made frequent inquiries after my relations and friends, but could never hear from them. About 2 years ago, I saw cousin Duncan Athill, who gave me some information that was of great satisfaction to me. I have 3 sons. The eldest is in the American Navy. The second was bought and emancipated by his father. The third, like myself, is unfortunately in bondage. I must now solicit the favor of you, my dear sister, to send me as quick as possible a certificate of my baptism and the signature of as many persons as you can who know that I am by birth a British subject. A British man of war was here twice for the purpose of emancipating all British subjects. I wrote down my place of nativity, my owners and my parents to present to the captain myself, who was then at the courthouse for that purpose, but was met by the adjutant of police at this place. And he prevented me, saying, quote, I must bring proofs that I am a British subject, end quote. I would have done so, there being 2 or 3 persons here that knew me, but it appears that will not do. Since the man of war left, he told me that I must provide my certificate of baptism and other certificates to prove that I was born in Antigua. For God's sake, let me earnestly entreat you not to neglect this, as it is of consequence to me. Get the certificates from the books and send it by the first opportunity. I shall now remind you, though I was very young, how I came to be so far to leeward from my native home. Mrs. Gilliam went to England and left me under the care of Miss Amy Clark. She put me to school at Miss Betty Allain, a mulatto woman who lived at the Point. Miss Clark lived below Mr. White, the vendor master in the little market street. Miss Gilliam sent for me to go to England to her. Miss Clark sent me home to her by a Captain Pizzy. Unfortunately, that fleet was taken and carried to Spain. I traveled from Spain until I got to England to Miss Gilliam. Her daughter, Sally Gilliam, married a lawyer named William Turpin, and we lived in the county of Surrey, 7 miles from London. I lived there a long time and spent many seasons in happy England, and am now in bondage in a foreign land. After my return to Antigua from England, not more than 5 or 6 days, my mistress, Mrs. Gilliam, sold me to a gentleman from St. Croix by the name of Mr. William Armstrong, who owned an estate called the Pearl. He went by the name of Billy the Bean to distinguish him from some others that by that name in the said island. He left Antigua and went to Nevis, and I was sent from Antigua to him at Nevis. Mr. David King, who lived at Spring Gardens, put me on board at night, and I went with Mr. Armstrong to St. Croix. I'm going to interrupt here and just note that even all of the nighttime transactions tell you that something must have been illegal about this movement of this child. Let me keep going. My present owner is Miss Georgiana Briggs, who formerly kept the City Hotel in this island of St. Thomas. She being in debt to a Danish gentleman, Mr. Wallow, he has a mortgage on myself and my child. This gentleman is in great repute. I've now given you a full account of myself, and if you have any love for our departed mother, lose no time in getting me home to my native country. When you write, direct your letters to Mr. Wills, the tailor, and he will deliver it safe to me. You can show this letter to the heads of your island, that some notice may be taken of it. I am sure justice will be done. I remain your affectionate sister, signed Eliza Moore. So this is a harrowing story. You can hear Eliza Moore's desperation to be free of what has been decades of bondage, likely marked by physical, mental, and sexual abuse. In the officials' letters, we learn too. So there's a whole archive. It's not big, but there are a number of letters that I found that are exchanged about her case in 1836 and in 1838. And in those letters, we learned that Eliza actually had discovered that the man who had the mortgage on her, Mr. Wallow, had a plan to actually sell that mortgage on her and her son to a slave market in Puerto Rico, which prompted an appeal in 1838 after the one in 1836 that she first tried failed. And she also in 1838 was able to convince the authorities to push to find some people who could vouch for her. And that's when her sister and her friend actually were brought into the colonial office in Antigua to give depositions on her behalf. And so in a very rare instance of success, quote unquote, the Antiguan governor actually approved the $150 payment that Wallo and the Danish government representatives required to return her home to Antigua. Moore's 1838 manumission comes a decade before emancipation in the Danish territories in 1848, and more than 30 years before the Spanish would free enslaved Puerto Ricans in 1870. Essentially, Moore was able to save herself from what could have easily been the rest of her life spent in bondage. Her eventually successful attempt at liberation via a claim to British subjecthood is very fascinating. There's all this discussion in her own letters of her crossing the sea to England, ending up in Spain, ending up ambushed on a ship, on the ship, and then having to be brought back through Europe to England. And you also learn a lot from her letter and also the depositions about the gendered struggles that she had, that show that she had certain access to opportunities that would facilitate her freedom, like being able, as a domestic slave, to get close to the family that owned her, who then did things like allow her to go and get lessons so that she could become literate. But they also were quite awful in that they sold her the minute she got back to Antigua after keeping her in England for so many years. And so again, it's a very mixed bag, right? And I think her story reveals that we can't put faith in the idea that domestic slaves, quote unquote, had it easier because they were somehow, in the house and off of the fields. Being close to your masters sometimes meant that you were absolutely in the direct line of violence that could happen either from, acts like getting sold to make a little money quite quickly, or what happens next when she is sold to St. Croix, because she's St. Croix at the age of 13, and my estimation is that by the age of 14, she has his first child. She has her first child, by him. So Eliza Moore's story teaches us many lessons about Black people's shifting status and how they sometimes had to subvert and engage in quiet resistance. Other times, though, the way that we can look at her story and see that she had to uphold certain hierarchies historically in the Caribbean. Lessons that we could distill from that self-authored letter, as well as from the depositions to the Antiguan colonial government by her sister and her friend on her behalf. And then there are other lessons that I learned from the letters written by these officials that involved the fact that the decision to free her actually was tied to certain circumstances of imperial statecraft that were far beyond the control of she and the other lowly Black women in her kin circle who fought to get her liberty. But I'll talk first about these women. The women who vouched for her were her sister, Hester Blackstone, and her friend, Maria Hughes, they were both domestic slave women themselves. Hester Blackstone ended up at one point in Antigua, at another point in Demerara. Colonial Demerara is what is now Guyana. So her owners also took her on various travels, but within the empire. Maria Hughes was enslaved at points in Antigua as a domestic and also accompanied her owners to St. Thomas. And that's where Maria Hughes would run into Eliza Moore and actually transport the letter that I read from back to Antigua and got it to her sister, Hester Blackstone, who then brought it to the authorities. These women, when they deposed themselves, would vouch for Eliza a Danish slave as being Antiguan born and raised as a child. They had a tactic for inserting her into the timeline of British history, strategically deploying what I call imperial time to create a legible trajectory for her early life. So one would report that she was born during the governorship of a certain Leeward Islands governor. That another reported that she was transferred from Antigua to England during Horatio Nelson's fight versus the French in the Napoleonic Wars. Another part of the report involved her being brought back to Antigua during a different governor's governorship, and that she was quickly sold to St. Croix right after. So they didn't know exact dates, but what they had were these changes that were happening in the British Empire in the Caribbean that would be completely legible to the colonial officers hearing these depositions. And these women told similar stories about Eliza using these exact same markers of time. So her enslaved trajectory was linked to this imperial one, helping her to legitimate her claims to the officials that yes, in fact, Eliza was British. Eliza also, in her letter, spends a lot of time explaining her, quote, happy years as a child domestic slave in Antigua and in England. Again, I didn't mention this, but the record suggests she was born somewhere around 1794, between 1794 and 1797. When she ends up in England, I estimate that she's around the age of 8 and ends up back in Antigua at the age of 13, and that's when she's sold to St. Croix. And she implicitly indicates in the letter that the difficulty she encountered began when she was sold from British territory into Danish territory and started working for these 3 different Danish owners that she names between the 1810s and the 1830s in St. Croix and St. Thomas. Her first owner was estate proprietor William Armstrong, and like I said, he fathered and freed her first son that she birthed at about 14 years old. When he left for Denmark, she was then placed back on the auction block. She then moved to St. Thomas because she was purchased by Georgiana Briggs, who employed her at a hotel. And a hotel is a site which Eliza, obviously adhering to politics of respectability, doesn't say outright, but at which we should plausibly imagine that she might have been prostituted to her clients. Because firstly, her enslaved status, right? She's a domestic slave cleaning rooms at a hotel in the early decades of the 19th century. And then also the statuses and the expectations of those who are transient travelers into and out of 19th century Caribbean colonial towns like Charlotte Amalie, right? Because City Hotel was right on the Charlotte Amalie wharf. And the idea, when we think of who is even coming into the Caribbean and is in need of a guest house to stay at or a hotel, rather than having connections with property locals so that they could stay in these homes. These are usually men who are on the make, single white men. And so when they're coming to these properties like the City Hotel that Georgiana Briggs owned, they're going to expect that the women who are in service to Briggs are also going to be in service to them, unfortunately. While laboring at that hotel, Eliza Moore is going to have a second son who she says is freed by an unnamed man. That was his father, that he was bought. That child was bought and then emancipated. And that's something that happened in Caribbean history, in the history of slavery in the Americas, where someone might be bought by a family member in order to free them. So I don't know if that happened in the context of her labors at this hotel. Maybe he was a client, or maybe he was a man that Eliza had some sort of intimate connection outside of the hotel with. We can never know. Eliza actually is continuing to work for Briggs even after Georgiana Briggs falls on hard times. The hotel that we owned actually burns down. And after that, Briggs would end up opening a boarding house. And the boarding house actually placed ads in the paper. And I found one of these ads in what was known then as the St. Thomas Times. And the ad essentially is for a guest house that she opens up in the wake of the hotel fire. And that guest house suggests she Georgiana Briggs is open to having male, she says it's open to any number of gentlemen who need a place to stay. Again, it suggests that I think implicitly that any woman enslaved at the guest house under Briggs's control would have been in service to these gentlemen staying at this guest house. Ultimately, Briggs isn't able to save herself from financial trouble, so ends up mortgaging Eliza Moore and Eliza Moore's third son, which leads to the possibility of her being sold. Wallow is described as another property Danish gentleman. As she says, he's someone in great repute. And he is already looking at profiting from the mortgage by selling her. And so the letters and the description of her life suggests that the further she moved from British space, the more danger that she encountered. And so her plea was that her freedom, it wasn't necessarily based on what we would think in 2021 was a human right to be liberated. It wasn't a universal right to have ownership of your body and your time, but one in particular that was tied to her Britishness. Again, reinforcing the ways that in the 19th century, at a time when slavery is still the norm for much of the Americas, that conceptualizing Black people's right to freedom could only be done in these exclusionary fashions. Who did you belong to? What empire were you in? Liberty can't rest on that concept of Black humanity that we see right now. It's still being fought for in today's news cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Alscess, you wanted to.
I wanted to say that your time was up.
My time's up. Sorry, yeah, I wasn't
Sorry
even.
about that. But we were so engaged with you, and we gave you a little bit more time because of the nature of your research. And this is why I didn't introduce you, because we're not introducing the readers. We're having the readers include their introduction in their presentation.
Yes.
So we hope to see you again. We hope to include you again. When the book is published.
The book will be out.
You'll get more time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to share this little slice of Antigua and St. Thomas history. It's really, really auspicious, and I feel like it happening on today in particular, it means something so much to me. So thank you.
It's very compelling, and we really appreciate all of the hard work you did with that research. We're looking forward to hearing from you again. Absolutely. When you have a final copy of the book. Thank you very much.
Keep an eye out, Fugitive Cosmopolitans, everybody.
Right. We're gonna take a few moments now to do some ads for people who are sponsoring us. Absolutely. So Adrian is gonna take 2 or 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll get back to the panel. Thank you, Natasha. Don't go away.
Thank you.
Everyone deserves a second chance. The VI Lottery is giving players a new wave of opportunity with the Second Chance raffle.
If you enjoy the excitement of playing the VI Lottery, now you get another shot at winning.
Every 2 weeks, one lucky player in each district will win a $200 gift certificate, which can be used at various stores in their district.
Who wouldn't want to take advantage of an opportunity when it presents itself the second time around?
Didn't win? Go for the second chance drawing. It's easy to play.
That's right. All you have to do is take the non-winning ticket and log on to winvilottery.com. Click on the Second Chance game logo, enter your lottery ticket number and its serial number, submit it, and you're good to go. The VI Lottery, a wave of opportunities.
Is Mr. Saddiq there?
Yes, he is.
Okay, I don't know how to say your last name. Forgive me.
I was just in another reading, and a friend texted me and said, "Oh, your last name almost killed the man."
So how do you say it?
Dzukogi.
I was going to guess that.
Dzukogi. Okay.
Dzukogi. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So I have the floor.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
10
okay.
minutes.
All right. Thank you so much. To everyone who has put together this wonderful event. I was in the morning section, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm very happy to be here. I am going to be talking about my book, which was just published in March titled Your Crib, My Qibla. And it's a collection of poems that I wrote to immortalize the life of my daughter, who we lost 21 days after her first birthday. Yeah, and it's a book about loss and the death of this child and my pursuit to find language that can articulate my grief. In these poems, I was wrestling with the language of memory, which was functioning as a space of mourning and connecting me to my dead child, and also to the world of the living that I'm still a part of, culminating in an imagined dialogue between myself and this daughter. Yeah, so it's available on Amazon and also the University of Nebraska Press that published it. It's published under the African Poetry Book Series. I'll read two poems from the collection. The first poem, titled Wine Glass. When we lose someone, right, everything becomes sacred, everything that they've touched. And when I returned from visiting the grave of my daughter, I found her hair trapped in her comb. And this is a poem that speaks to that particular moment. Wine Glass. When your mother found strands of your hair hung up in the teeth of your comb, your father scrolled them into a wine glass. It bites him hard that your life happened like an hourglass with only a handful of sand. This split to the seam of his body, a split of darkness that won't kill him, but squeezes adrenaline into his veins so he lives through the pain of your absence. He's not all right to speak. His voice rims with bereavement, and he wants to sing by your grave, child, now that birds blow songs through the window. Count sadness on the prayer beads necklaced around his collar. If he had known the sky would inhale you out of him so quickly, he would have stayed with your toes forever in his hands. Your face is still everywhere, even in the places he's not looking. He presses a deep kiss on your grave, on your forehead, hands cloudy from rubbing the grave as if on your tender skin. The distance he feels is more than the 400 kilometers that often stands between you. He will travel this far to hold you against the moon. They say you are like his reflection, pulled out of the mirror he stares into. To pull you out, he plunges his hands inside himself and pulls. The next poem that I'll read is from the second section of the book. The book has two sections. The first is the voice of the father in the third person, which serves as the poet's inner voice. And then the next section is a dialogue between the daughter and the father. And the poem that I'll read is in the voice of the daughter, titled Observations. Observations. Baha. Air 1. Ba. I am praying that a hummingbird hands me its ability to hover and fly backward, back into a timepiece where I am myself in a bath water you prepared. Startled that a flower doesn't bloom, I brood over the idea of bereavement, a nest egg of sorrow. Because there's an ounce of life unfolding inside my tears, there is no right way to swallow a sullen peel. There is a spark of lifelessness in the bulb that fails to bloom. I miss you cleaning dirt in my ears, miss you wiping filth off my kneecaps, scrubbing my face often so tenderly. Remember that you put me to sleep on grandmother's mat. Everything I need now is inside the threadbare blankets you wrapped me in. Because here my body is a flea bag where loneliness governs like a dictator. View 2. From the past, dying is like moving into a future, past the street, bursting with voices of the people you know. I'm a girl who looks like her father. Uku. 3. What do I know of a prayer other than it's a place where my knees root the ground and palms curve towards God like a child waiting to drink from his body? Because prayers often beget silence. I'm in a communion with the half-cleaved side of my melancholy. My mouth waits the puzzle in the air, where I imagine your body pillowing mine on the heels of your hands. Hudu 4. Ba. When I close my eyes, we are looking the moon in the eye, the perfect place to dream into. Our bones gleaming in its dim light. Mother once dropped in my ears these words. A fantasy comes true if imagined thoroughly. Year 5. I hear stars cracking. Perhaps you are the most tragic victim of my fantasy. From where I stand, it's easier to pull the earth closer to my forehead than to wait for your prayers to be answered. Shida 6. I am lacing your hair into a rope of desire, a collection of things beyond one's reach. I think I still have a little time to read one more poem. And I'm gonna read a short one. When we lost her, she was still being breastfed. And this next poem is a poem that speaks to that particular moment. Interment. Your mother's breasts swell with milk. She cups each in her hands as she delicately squeezes the warm milk through puffed up nipples into a polythene bag, paces into the yard, roots her knees to the earth, hands muddied as she digs the spot where she entombs the milk, there, in the place you used to play with your brother. She leans back, looks into an open sky like one who has found a way of sending the milk across to you. Thank you so much for giving me the space to share these poems with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very inspiring and a lot of images, and I like your use of the metaphor. Who's next? Next, Patricia Maynard here.
Yeah. Or Dawad Phillip. Let me see if I see Dawad.
Yes,
Dawad is here. Dawad.
Thank you. Thank you, each and everyone, for having me as a part of this wonderful festival. I am checking in from Trinidad. My name is Dawad Phillip. I would be reading from, well, I have two recent books at Anaphora, A Mural by the Sea, and it's available on Anaphora, from Anaphora Press and Amazon, and then I'm reading from City Twilight. Where we are in Trinidad right now in terms of both the landscape and the geography of the lockdown, it's an ever-changing kind of reality. Just last night from midnight last night, we were pretty much on the full lockdown because the numbers kept going up. But this was the first incident that I experienced last year. My sister-in-law had passed, and this was a funeral. And 2 days after this funeral, that's in this poem, the country went on the full lockdown. A funeral before COVID-19. Elegy for Lois. How quickly it all changed, and changing still, by the hour, by the day, In the blink of an eye, we hit the ground running, no time to grieve over love, holiday pastels, no pause or tear over the suddenness of your passing. You'd hardly recognize this world you left behind, this war against a cunning enemy, against the clock, a rising curve, free falling market. I think of you, your bittersweet homegoing as the last we'd see, dignified of old customs, filling adjoining chapels. The new dead are zipped in body bags, blue lights flashing ahead as loaded 16-wheelers speed away. We mourn on Instagram, sing hymns and Sankeys in measured distance. Obituaries more and more familiar every hour, someone you know, and quarantine, a viral leash to wear and isolate. Old men like me understand it has to do with beds, masks, respirators, expediencies, politics, and profit. We watched overworked medics lead the charge and workers look death in the eye and resist. We get it that the earth paused and dolphins returned and an army of toads came hopping in the moonlight outside my door. It all happened quickly, your passing. This crazed beast that for a moment feels like any ordinary Sunday. My neighbor revving his engine as he listens for the timing in the carburetor. There's no place to go, I tell him. You wake one morning and a hospital has mushroomed in the middle of the meadow, a new city of tents and incubators, waiting trailers parked in the shade of maples. There is no procession for the new dead, no three-cornered cheese-based sandwiches and rosaries, no wondering what dress to wear, to say, to sing, to wonder, grieve. You may not recognize these random concerns. In the margins of a journal someone will keep the noise of a large bird with strong talons clawing on the roof. I come out in time to see the length of its tail, a large hawk as it flapped its powerful wings and soared away. And still, my second piece on the theme of COVID, the Cubans, it somehow ties the European football reality with racism, and the Cubans who have bravely, as always, went ahead and not only worked on their own vaccine, but sent their medical folks around the world to help. Il passaggio della morte, passage of death. At the French-Italian border, a tarpaulin tied to a tree is a soft-sided structure, two côtés, the holding pen for Africans who sailed by way of an old Moorish map, Tunis to Genoa, Nice on the French side. At the checkpoint corralled by Les Gendarmes, they lay face down without food or water. Sneakers cut away, cell phones and SIM cards confiscated. They are sent barefooted over the cold mountain. COVID-19 brought this all home, how we drew level, borderless, and barefoot against a terror neither boot nor bullet could crush. Who stood guard at Lombardy when the virus came? Who in Wuhan city in Madrid, in New York, in Tulsa, in Tehran. Where was the Ayatollah against this infidel? COVID is her name, and her kiss is turning lungs to glass. She seduces you, come, she's daring le gendarme, throw a banana. The man from the window with his bullhorn, the girl with the cello on the balcony, the crowded plaza when the Cubans came, the young doctor from Havana, a doppelganger for the boy who led his barefoot army over the cold mountain. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saddiq. That was, thank you, Dawad. That was excellent.
Amazing.
Very, very compelling poems.
Poetry we're hearing, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Adrian, are you ready with the ad now, please? And then after that, we'll have Ms. Naima Wade.
Everyone deserves a second chance. The VI Lottery is giving players a new wave of opportunity with the Second Chance raffle.
If you enjoy the excitement of playing the VI Lottery, now you get another shot at winning.
Every 2 weeks, one lucky player in each district will win a $200 gift certificate, which can be used at various stores in their district.
Who wouldn't want to take advantage of an opportunity when it presents itself the second time around?
Didn't win? Go for the second chance drawing. It's easy to play.
That's right, all you have to do is take the non-winning ticket and log on to winvilottery.com. Click on the Second Chance Game logo, enter your lottery ticket number and its serial number, submit it, and you're good to go. The VI Lottery, a wave of opportunities.
Miss Joy Dillon, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're on.
Are you seeing me? Just a moment. Oops. Are you seeing me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. I am Joy Dillon from Trinidad and Tobago. My first poem is entitled The Deed. I killed him. Yep, I did it. I killed him all by myself too. And when the deed was done, remorse was not even a thought. I felt great. I felt at peace. Relaxed, relieved, resurrected. I should have killed him sooner and faced the consequences. It was the culmination of a relationship that should have never been seen, heard, or thought of. So, the pressure got to me, and I killed him. He received my milk of human kindness, when it made more sense to have him consume the poison that he daily fed me. I perfumed my actions with courage, grace, tenacity, and renewed purpose, even though the stench of his petulant cruelty continued to assail my health, my appearance, my mind, my soul, my worth. Then he tried flowers. That didn't work. So, forget flowers. We went to the beach. It was a pretty beach, a romantic beach. We walked hand in hand into the water. Then he left me there. I was on the brink of drowning, and he just stood there, watching me, recording me, ignoring me. Even as I pleaded, panicked, prayed, my head dipped below the surface before I eventually went under. My body surrendered, but my spirit was determined that I should not die that day. I survived. I managed to stumble back to shore, gasping for breath, weary in body and seething with anger. He gingerly held out his hand to me, fumbling apologies as he spoke. I pounced on him, near knocking him off his feet. I saw the same look of terror he caused me in the water. I was ready to strike him. Then I stopped and sighed. I released him from my grip. I helped him to his feet. Almost without warning, I saw him shrink, wither, and collapse motionless before me. I did not worry. I shed no tears. And then I happily walked away in my own company, knowing that finally the deed was done. My second poem is entitled Carito. It's a healing poem. Lengthen the lusty lullaby soothing the savage beast. Celestial charms court hapless dreamers to the far east. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Mother's pollinated kisses promulgate this eternal spring. Soar on the summer winds of yesteryear as a bird's wing. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. When youth departs, forgive this regretful, covetous heart. When old age beckons, dare me defy this imposing rampart. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Mortal life is living art, a burgeoning masterpiece in motion. Not even elongated deathly shadows can disrupt that condition. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Burdensome anguish lightens with much liberal laughter. Maneuvering tempestuous anger builds a seasoned sailor. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Famished bodies perceive salt differently from open wounds. Succor for the yearning soul is worth its weight in pounds. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Slowly emerge from lonely valleys of bitter despondence to savor the welcoming vistas and ultimate deliverance. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. Roaming rain clouds rejuvenate edifices of flesh and mortar. Pause prolonged weeping for the temporarily sleeping son or daughter. Sing this song, sing it long, sing it strong, sing along. And finally, if I have time, I have one commentary. It's entitled How to Write About Trinidad and Tobago. If you forget where the country is, tell them it's the place with a set of Trinidadians and Tobagonians, and hope they don't drop you in the middle of New York's Brooklyn. Welcome to the land, not of discipline, production, and tolerance, but this old plain, corruption, disruption, and tolerance, where together we perspire, together we disbelieve. We're all equal, but a select few are called privy. My country is so unified. Our people always come together for carnival and when we're traveling to or living in foreign. Then we're proud Trinbagonians, but otherwise, that's pushing it. This is the land where steel pan is subculture, rap and dancehall music are elevated, and entitled egos are expected. Don't talk about chutney without mentioning calypso somewhere in the sentence. In the same breath, don't mention any form of East Indian folk dance without similarly mentioning some aspect of African folk dance. These are the only two ethnic groups that matter on issues of national culture and heritage. In this bountiful land of civic, law-abiding citizens, you can enjoy a sumptuous meal of scarlet ibis, even if it is not legal in the official hunting season, plus macaroni pie loaded with cheese and milk and butter and more cheese plus gravy, callaloo, mango cuchilla, stewed pigeon peas, and one lettuce leaf. Healthy, of course, on a fancy dinner plate, washed down with a cold nip of something legally or illegally fermented, of course. As you come off the plane, provided your passport didn't lose you on its during its excitement to come here, do ensure that you have suntan lotion, insect repellent, and an upbeat attitude on hand. Any person desirous of eating a food from the government trough in this land of catch-tail will happily smile at your US Benjamins, Canadian dollars, British pounds, Euro dollars, first world accents, untanned, light skin, and big impressive name or rank, If, however, you don't have at least one of the above, you can pretty much forget about savoring or warmth of the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago is not one of your atypical Caribbean tourist destinations. It's a South American island, a twin island nation that long separated from the mainland. Indeed, it has the flora, fauna, and numerous visa-less visitors crossing the Columbus Channel to land at Cedros and Lucero in South Trinidad in the middle of the night to prove it. If you desire sand, we have plenty in Trinidad, from corporate stockpiles that utilize the banks of rivers to source their personal material, or up to ferret it from the once verdant hillsides of the northern range without the government's knowledge, intermixed with the waves of dust that blows in all the way from the Sahara Desert. If you crave SAND, however, go straight to Tobago, any part of Tobago that touches the edge of water. Look out for any smiling, barebacked local who inquires about your activities and offers to assist for free just because they love visitors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That was my presentation, and it's a pleasure to be part of this wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy, where would we find your poems?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Where could we find your poems?
Oh, my book isn't published just yet, but it would be very soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very, very compelling.
Okay. Miss Wade is here. Naima is here.
Yes, Miss Wade, please go.
Okay.
You're on.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the technical glitch. My little Mac broke down about 3 weeks ago, and having an Apple fixed on island is not an easy task. So you're on the iPad. So I hope that the visual is fine. This piece is coming from a book that was just published, self-published, called War is Over, We Are Unbound, Poetry Armor for the Times We Live in America. The piece that I would like to read, first of all, is called Ancestors. It's a piece that I've written when I came to thinking about living in St. Croix since 1974 as an educator. And seeing people with the names like Lewis, which is my mother's maiden name, and all of these different beautiful, beautiful ancestors. Ancestors, ancestors, spirits whisper in memory like magic, voices from the faces of the unseen, those who cupped hand to mouth with the believing and forgave, forgave. This is an ancient well. This is an ancient well where they stood. We listen. Where we stand, we listen. We listen to the winds, the crashing waves. We listen to the echo, echo, echo. We listen to their voices, all the voices today, ancestors. We listen to the songs they would sing. Ancestors, ancestors. I had visited Cape Coast and all of the enslavement castles when I wrote that piece. This book, War is Over, is more about an internal liberation. I think that says it all, an internal, from within. The last piece I will read because of sake of time, and I know it's kind of late. It's been very wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It is a piece that I wrote. I worked with Wallace Williams, who I don't know if he's on, he'll be on, but Wallace used to run the libraries, and many of my students from teaching from Charles H. through Central and Claudio Marco, I've been really always had students that produce writings and poetry. And because my accent was so different in teaching in the schools, I've been seeing such beautiful elderly ladies. I've seen them many times. Like I said, my thing is to looking at, people like you that here, Miss Lewis, and all of the different people that I've seen today, and it's called for the beauty of elderly ladies. Step carefully, my beautiful elderly lady. Bones tend to mellow into softness at a certain elderly age. Step carefully, my beautiful elderly lady. Soft steps now. Fine, accurate steps, moving with rhythmic hesitations, with knowledge of what's to come. Besides, who wants to stop stepping now over such trivials as broken limbs? Step carefully, my beautiful elderly lady, with your graceful form hands, bloodlines of past generations recorded through your veins, lines of history, experience written on top, thick, thin veins, sometimes colorless veins, veins of evolution, revelations, destiny of all humankind. Step carefully, my beautiful elderly ladies. Meet you again someday. Smile, a gesture of respect and gratitude to a beautiful elderly lady. Is there any, do I have like 2 minutes or 3 minutes? Ms. Lewis, could you tell me?
I think the time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wade, for that. I'm not sure if we have any elderly lady in this bunch. But I certainly don't consider myself one of them. But
okay.
You never know. Some people have different categorizations of who's elderly,
but it's
what.
A different,
and
but
so
it's
there's a different kind of mindset. So I like the rhythm in your poem, and I thank you for that. It's very inspiring.
Yes. One day I'll reach you as elderly ladies, hopefully. That would be great to get there.
Yes. All righty. Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll have Marni Hill then. Ms. Foderaro, I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Hi, yes, it's Foderaro. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be part of the Literary Fest and Book Fair. And I would love to be there in person, but virtual is all right. I am fairly new to the Caribbean. I've lived in St. Croix for 2 years, and I am an author. My book, which is entitled God Came to My Garage Sale, just won the 2020 Best Books Award that was sponsored by the American Book Fest. And my book is endorsed by James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy series of books. Some of you may be familiar with the 10th Insight and Celestine Vision. And so I've just been honored to have endorsements, not only from him, but members of the IONS community, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. So even though my book is a spiritual fiction entitled God Came to My Garage Sale, it really is inspired by so many true experiences, actually miracles that happen. It's about an atheist woman who loses everything, loses her house, loses all her money, kind of has to get rid of whatever she can at a garage sale just to make ends meet. And when she does, some miracles happen. People come and some situations happen to her that just can't be explained by ordinary means. And so anyway, she has these experiences. So the book is actually a pretty easy read. There's 13 vignettes from this book, and it is sold in the United States Virgin Islands. It's probably in, I think, 18 or 19 locations on St. Croix, where I live. You can find it on the West End at the Caribbean Arts Museum, the Botanic Gardens, Nestor's, the Fred, Franklin's on the waterfront. You can find it Mid-Island at Joe's, the coffee shop, or at Medicine Shop. You can find it on the East End at Blue Water Terrace. Actually, downtown Christiansted, it's at Cheney Chicks and I think the Natural Jewelry Store. The book is only $10 on Island, so it's very reasonable. It's if you decide to purchase it at Amazon or Balboa Press, that they sell it for $11.99, or if you do the e-version, just $3. But this has opened the door to a number of other things. I am now a co-author of 4 best-selling books. You can find them on my website, which is also the title of my book, www.godcametomygarage.com. And there you can also find different writing and speaking endeavors. I've actually kind of morphed my topic to include surviving domestic violence and narcissist abuse and parental alienation. And my entire message is that we can have challenges in our lives, and all of us do have many challenges, but how we choose to handle these challenges can make or break whether we are a victim or a survivor. And I choose to be a survivor, and I choose to live in love and light and goodness. And it's, you know, taken many years. I left an abusive marriage after 27 years. And, you know, still actually have to look over my shoulder and have to be vigilant and cautious. But at the same time, I'm living life with love and peace and goodness. And I'm just having a little bit more discernment than I did before. So writing has been very therapeutic for me. I actually just taught a writing workshop class at the Caribbean Arts Museum in Frederiksted. And just to encourage, we had a wonderful time. It was just a 2-hour workshop to encourage people that are interested in writing their first novel, or finishing up a book that they had or in their minds or actually on paper, just to get it out there. And I share what I did to actually get my book published. The 4 other best-selling books I'm involved in are anthology books. So for a very small investment, you're one of 12 or 30, depending on the book, authors that contribute to a book. So those of you that are interested in writing, this is one way to get into writing, and where you just do a 2,000 to 5,000 word essay, and they help you if you need it with editing, but it's very good to just edit yourself as much as possible. But then they take care of all the marketing and the promotions and that type of thing. And
excuse me, are you gonna be sharing anything from your work, because you've used more than half of the time? I just don't want you to miss out on sharing from the work.
Yes. What would you like me to share?
You share what resonates with you, what you feel you could share. But this is a space for sharing your work. I mean, you did. I like the fact that you really did some PR work there, and that's good. But we want to hear from your work as well. So whatever resonates with you, we would like to hear.
Sure. Well, with this particular book, I talk about this woman having experiences that are miracles that can't really be explained in regular terms. So for example, and they're based on real experiences, even though it is a fictional book and there's some embellishment, they're really with some real experiences. They're very easy to read. For example, the first chapter is about dragonflies, and the character was saying goodbye to her beautiful home and her American dream, this fairy tale life. And she took a deep breath, and she just really prayed and just centered herself. And within moments, one dragonfly started serenading her.
Can you share that space? Can you share that with us? Can you read it from the book? Can you share that with us?
Sure. I'd be happy to. Yeah. I'm so sorry. This is my first time.
It's no problem. It's always the first time. And this is where you're among people who are like-minded, but we just want to hear your voice. We want to hear your work.
Okay, that's no problem.
So a paragraph or two, because you have 4 minutes remaining.
Sure. Okay. The swarm of dragonflies surrounded me. I remember distinctly feeling that somehow these hundreds of dragonflies were engulfing me in warm, supportive, loving protection, as I reflected that life, as I knew it, was falling apart right in front of me. It was as if each dragonfly, big, medium, and small, represented many lifetimes of ancestors, my ancestors, coming together at this critical watershed moment in my life, so as to give me strength during this dreaded garage sale weekend. I didn't think anyone would believe me when I told them about what happened with these dragonflies. So luckily, at some point during the event, I knew to pull out my phone, and I was able to video record at least half of the experience, just for proof. Wow, what an experience it was. It was a sunny Saturday morning in July, and I had painstakingly worked for many weeks preparing my garage sale, sorting through boxes and arbitrarily assessing value to each item and affixing on a price label. I had already felt like I put in a full day's work, even though it was only 7:30 in the morning. I'm not sure what prompted me, but I chose to take a sentimental reflection break and stroll out to my cul-de-sac island, the one that I maintained for 20 years with seasonal plantings and a bench that I had assembled and kept looking fresh with a yearly coat of wood stain. I turned to say goodbye and take a hard, long look at my beautiful home. This was the home of my dreams, down to the hunter green awnings, symmetrical window boxes overflowing with colorful cascading flowers, and an inviting wraparound porch. But it was also the home of my dreams, because that is where so many of my memories with my children were contained in each expansive room. So that's at least a start of that chapter, where I go on to talk about how at some point in very slow motion, the dragonflies, up to 100 of them, start circling me and giving me reassurance that everything was going to be okay, that I would survive this trauma and these losses.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving us all that information about your activities with regards to publishing and so forth. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Next.
Interesting.
Who's next?
Hi, Charlene. If you'd like, I'm ready to share the video.
Yes, please do that now, Adrian.
And when the video is done, we'll have Claudette-Athea Douglas.
And this is, and we generally don't do videos, but because this person had a special circumstances, we allow this. We prefer to have the person live on, just so you know.
Without our songs, we would go mad. Spirit lives within the bloodline. No colorism inside the tide of heartbeats. Hope's well beyond pallid divides. Spirit lives within the bloodline. With bittersweet words like blackstrap molasses. Hope's well beyond pallid divides. Where sable banners hold true to the cause. With bittersweet words like blackstrap molasses, we sing of lineage and slap calabash rhythms. Where sable banners hold true to the cause. A stewardship of age-old tales, ancestral tongues. We sing of lineage and slap calabash rhythms. For the Western world, our narratives are thorn trees. A stewardship of age-old tales, ancestral tongues, salt-bleached bones filter oceanic dreams. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have our song. For the Western world, our narratives are thorn trees. What will tomorrow bring? More bearers of naught? Salt-bleached bones filter oceanic dreams of sanguine tides cast on sea salt crowns. What will tomorrow bring? More bearers of naught? Even with raised hands, henchmen mark us. Of sanguine tides cast on sea salt crowns, let's speak of a nation's waterlogged souls. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have our song. Even with raised hands, henchmen mark us. White masks and road-raging robes surge. Let's speak of a nation's waterlogged souls. Racism lives in the backyard sewer of virtue. White masks and road-raging robes surge. Prepare to die stamped on black backs. Racism lives in the backyard sewer of virtue. We won't play fool for pistol-licking deadbeats. Prepare to die stamped on black backs. No colorism inside the tide of heartbeats. We won't play fool for pistol-licking deadbeats. Without our songs, we would go mad. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have our song. We have our song, we have
Okay. Thank you, Miss Maroula Blades. Do you have any afterthoughts, afterwards? Sorry.
Any afterthoughts for that one? We have 2 more minutes in that one. That was very compelling. It's those images were stunning.
Yes, I think. Okay, is Claudette there, please? Claudette-Athea? Okay, well, if Claudette-Athea is not there, that means we've come to the end of the presentations.
Okay, so maybe we can use this opportunity to talk a little bit about what we heard this afternoon. We have a few more minutes. Maybe we can use 10 minutes to do that. I think that there seemed to be a thread running through all of the pieces. I mean, it wasn't planned that way. Oh, Claudette is here. Claudette is here. Sorry about that. Claudette, let's, you're on.
Claudette, I think I need to promote you as the panelists.
Yes.
I'm going to do that now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, this is Claudette Thompson, and I am a Jamaican residing in the Bahamas, and I'm here to share with you about my book and about some of my writings. An original quote of mine says, "Reading is not a lost art once books are written from the heart." The wealth of knowledge and talent displayed thus far in the USVI Literary Festival is nothing short of amazing. We have all agreed that in order to keep our culture alive, we need to have more writers telling their stories. Those stories are not only about an individual's experience, but that of our region, of our territories, and of course, our region. Right now, it's interesting to know that I am a contestant in the Bahamas Laws of Life digital poetry competition, which ends tonight. The poem I entered was entitled "Be the Change." The final stanza reads, "Be the change. Don't cast blame on others or pass the buck. Be the change. Don't twiddle your thumbs, hoping for a stroke of luck. Be the change. It's not an impossible task. Are you willing to make a start? Be the change. That's all I ask. Be the change." And so if we are not satisfied with how we as a people or our culture is being portrayed in books, in the media, or on the big screen, we have to become writers. In my short career as a public writer, because I've been writing privately for some time, I have been published in Intersect Antigua. You could just make a note of that to check on the work when you have time. Intersect Antigua. There I have 2 stories, one called Hot Oil and one called Alice. And there is a poem entitled Freedom. I also am published in The Awakening, Volume 4 of the Catapult Caribbean Artist Showcase, where I have a collection of poems dedicated to females. In these poems, I try to encourage them to uplift themselves and not to stay in abusive relationships. And I just quote a short part of one of these poems. They say you are weak, that you are only fit to be led. They say you are easy, only good for a romp in bed. Woman, take a stand. Take a stand and assume your rightful place. Take a stand as a dignified member of the human race. Take a stand holding your moral standards high. Take a stand regarding honesty. There's no need to lie. Woman, take a stand. I have won the award for Best Writer in the 2019 Bahamas Poetry Competition. with a poem which is on YouTube. You can check it out later. It's called Unhappily Ever After. Additionally, I received a grant from Catapult Caribbean Artist Showcase. And in November 2020, I was able to have my first book published. It is entitled Take the Wheel. This is the book, Take the Wheel. It's a collection of short stories and poems which are relevant to children today. The stories are set right here in the Caribbean, and each one teaches at least one moral lesson. The book also contains a teaching section which introduces the reader to important literary terms. Take the Wheel is available on Amazon and in the Kindle store, and I would encourage everyone to get a copy, whether you have a child or not. Adults have been finding it quite interesting. You will not regret it. As I close, I want to remind each of us that we need to tell our stories, whether in poetry or in prose. I am gifted to be able to master both poetry and prose, and both standard English as well as Jamaican patois. Here is a quote from my story, Alice, which is found on Intersect, Antigua, and it reiterates the importance of using the pen because of the power it holds. Alice is a story about two sisters, one of whom has been abused by her older sister because she was of a darker complexion. And the quote I would use as I close is, "As the tears streamed down my face, I resolved that when I was able, I would do my best to change the mindset of people. I felt inadequate until I remembered the words of Edward Bulwer Lytton. The pen is mightier than the sword. The scales had fallen from my eyes. Herein was the solution. I would become a writer, telling my story and the stories of others like myself, which would bring awareness and which would hopefully break down barriers of discrimination. Until then, Alice, the character in the story, my sister, had control. And I would urge all of us online to take control by using the pen, which is mightier than the sword." Thank you. Good evening.
Well, thank you very much
for that. You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, we've come to the end. We're having a lot of feedback. I'm not sure why.
Is your phone open?
My phone?
Do you have something else open? Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so I close this afternoon. Thank you so much for all of the authors, for their sharing. It was also inspiring, and it just seemed to be a common thread that connected many of the stories. And it brings me to the mind of a proverb that an African man shared with me, and the proverb is, "Until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And so we always have to consider that we must learn to tell our own stories because no one else will tell them for us. And the other quote that this African professor shared with me was, "Truth is like a baobab tree. No one man can put his arm around it." And if you know the baobab tree, it's huge. And so all of us have our truths, and in order for us to meet somewhere, we have to hold hands around it. And so I close by making some tributes to our sponsors, Vivo, the Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts, Pepperpot Press, VI, the VI Lottery, St. Croix Foundation, our fiduciary, the University of the VI, Cane Roots Art Gallery, and the Department of Tourism. And the University of the Virgin Islands is one of our primary sponsors. We all operate, those of us who are here, Dr. Hawkins-Pierre, myself, Ms. Spencer, Ms. Valmond has gone on and still connected to us, Mr. Clavier and Yvette McMahon just is also a part of that as well, and Ray J. Joseph. There's just and Elaine Jacobs is a graduate of the university, and so this they have been our primary underwriter, and so we're really happy that we're able to do this thing in collaboration with the Caribbean writer. And tomorrow we have a full lineup. I saw Mervyn Taylor here earlier. He's going to be the interlocutor for our first session tomorrow, which is dedicated to Edward Kamal Brathwaite, who was our editorial advisory board member for 30 years, way before my time. I am just with the Caribbean writer. This is my eighth, I believe, my eighth journal. It's been eight years for me.
Wow.
And so time has really flown.
Yeah.
And it has been a wonderful experience. I've had a chance to meet a lot of exciting writers around the region, and I'm happy to be partnering with the Lit Fest. The members of the Lit Fest is the committee. We have this synchrony where we work so well together, and even though some of us are remote, we're here, we're there, we have a kind of connection, and we somehow get it done. So I want to thank everyone, and please come back tomorrow. Any comments?
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
Thank you, Alscess, for continuing to do this. You've done such a wonderful job.
Thank you. Well, this is the team without the team, and my legs are the team.
And I just want to say,
writers, voices.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Forever optimistic. See you all next Lit Fest, number 8 at the Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts for the book Bacchanal. It will be mocha jumbies, it will be fun, it will be still pan. That's how we roll in the book rollout. So please enjoy.
I think we're gonna have a hybrid. We love the fact that we have people from all over the world here.
Absolutely.
So we're not gonna give up this section. It's gonna be a hybrid affair, because we're always going to allow our Trinidadians and our Jamaicans and our people in London and Italy to join us.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you on the behalf of the board of directors of Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts for allowing us to be part of this event all this year, and we look forward to continued participation and support.
And thank you, Adrian. You have been fantastic.
Yes, Adrian.
And Matthias have been fantastic. It's been a long day for you, and I know you're babysitting while you're doing this, and we really appreciate this. Thank you very much, Adrian. You are awesome.
Thank you, Alscess.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow at 12:45.
Yeah.
Please join us.
Thank you, and thank you, Charlene, for keeping me connected. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it all.
No worries, no worries.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great evening, and see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.